Hello everyone. On behalf of Solar Quarter and First View Group, I am Avanti extending a warm welcome to each and every one of you to today's webinar on Solar Market Outlook Eastern Africa 2023. It's my pleasure to be here as your host. We would like to extend a gratitude to our partner, Cleanergy, for their immense support in organizing this event. Additionally, we would like to express our appreciation to the attendees and our esteemed guest speaker for joining us in today's exclusive webinar. Your participation has made this event truly exceptional. The solar energy sector in Eastern Africa is anticipated to experience substantial growth in the upcoming years, enabling the provision of clean and reliable energy to millions of people throughout the region. According to the International Renewable Energy Agency, the region's solar energy potential is estimated to be approximately 600 gigawatt. The report highlights the possibility of generating up to 25 gigawatts of solar power by 2040, as solar energy becomes increasingly competitive with fossil fuels in the region. A webinar will provide a comprehensive outlook on the future of the solar market in Eastern Africa, covering a range of essential topics such as potential growth opportunities, advancements in technology, and policy changes. Attendees will gain valuable insights into the evolving landscape of the solar energy and its implication for the region's energy landscape. Also, we are excited to announce an upcoming physical event on Solar Assets Africa 2023 that is set to take place on 11th of August in Johannesburg. This event focused on the topic of asset management promises to be an enlightening and enriching experience for all our participants. Furthermore, we encourage you to nominate individuals who have made the significant contribution to the field of asset management. So now I would request my team to play the commercial video of Cleanergy.
Hi Cleanergy Club fans, how are you? My name is Marcela Pampin from Cleanergy. Today we're at WIFES 2023 in Abu Dhabi. So please, if you're joining now for the first time on our channel, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. So come and join me, I'll show you around our booth. Australian Chinese company based in Xiamen and in Melbourne. We have our own factories actually in Xiamen, so that's great because we get to customize anything that our clients need to get for them the best solutions. Today we're here at the World Future Energy Summit 2023. That is WIFES, which is held down in Abu Dhabi. For this particular show, over 14,000 people are attending and we're over 141 countries exhibiting. During these 3 days in our booth, we're showcasing a tracker solution. This is our Easy Tracker D1P. So this motor can hold up to 90 panels, that's 45 on each side. All the panels have to go in portrait, and this is an amazing solution because, as we said before, we can customize anything that you need of this beauty. If it's solar roof what you're looking for, then our PV Easy Rack mounting solution is perfect for you. Over here, we got it in silver, but thanks to Cleanergy Hollywood, we also got it in black. For ground mounting solution, in this opportunity, we're showcasing Solar Terrace Mat. This is our most cost-effective solution if you're looking for some ground mount. For more Solar Terrace products, please visit us in cleanergy.com, fill out the form, and we will for sure assess you in your next project. Okay, so that was all for today. Thank you so much for being with me during this day. Please don't forget, like, subscribe, share, follow, tell your friends, tell everybody. So see you next time.
Thank you, team. So let's start with the insightful presentation. I would like to invite Mr. Sami Jacob, Global Marketing Manager, Cleanergy, on screen. Over to you, Mr. Jacob.
Thank you, Avanti. Appreciate the opportunity to present Clergy and our offerings. I'll just start by sharing my screen here. Okay, cool. Yeah, let me know if you're able to see. Are you able to see my screen there, Avanti?
Yes, sir, we are.
Cool. Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody out there in Eastern Africa. Appreciate for all of you making the time today. My name is Samir Jacob. I'm the Global Marketing Manager with Clenergy. Without further ado, let's get into it. So in terms of from Clenergy, our mission, regardless of whether we're looking at structural engineering or electrical engineering in terms of our products and solutions, our main mission is to help companies and governments to reach carbon neutrality. Various entities out there have their targets for 2030, 2040, and we see ourselves as that company or as a vehicle to help you reach that goal. In terms of some of the key markers for the company, we just celebrated our 15-year anniversary last year. We are publicly listed. We have manufacturing in 3 countries, over 20 gigawatts of worldwide installations, with over 66 patents, and we do a lot of R&D research on our solar mounting gear and various other building products. And now we've actually also branched out into electrical products as well. In terms of our awards, just to give you a quick little snapshot, just this year alone, we got awards in Abu Dhabi for our Easy Tracker, top mounting company in Indonesia this year, as well as being the #1 manufacturer out of Australia as well. To give you a bit of a snapshot of our company, of who we are, and it's all because of the team that backs us. In terms of what is the difference with the Clenergy, at the end of the day, it is the uniqueness of the talent that we have within our teams, based from all around the world, whether it's Australia or Japan, or our teams in Europe or Indonesia, and also now our teams who are venturing into Africa as well. We just secured a new distributor and new partner in Cape Town. They just released a video on how they use our products. That's a little QR code there if you want to take it, and you can have a watch of the video there from Clenerac, and they actually show you how they use some of our PV EasyRack brand of products. In terms of us globally, that's where we are in terms of the blue markers of our offices, and the black dots is where all of our distribution channels are. In terms of our main 2 product lines, we have PV EasyRack, which is our solar mounting brand, and then we have Runner, which is our cable management and rooftop building products brand. In terms of PV EasyRack, it's got a couple of categories, whether you're looking for roof mount, ground mount, trackers, a nice black finish to your products. In terms of, we've got the brand called Clenergy Hollywood, and also we've got ground structures, and I'll take you through a few of the examples. In terms of roof mount products, whether you're looking for tin roofs, tile roofs, flat, we have solutions for the lot. If you're looking for tin roofs, whether it's penetrative or non-penetrative, we have options for this as well. And if you have flat roofs, whether you're looking for adjustable tilts, pre-assembled products like in the middle, what we call as the tripod, or we also have commercial products where we have here called the COM-T 2.0, which is for a penetrative solution for concrete roofs, and so much more. We also do have a ballast system for concrete roofs as well. If you wish not to penetrate the roof and you want to use concrete blocks to hold your solar array down, we have options for that as well. I thought, let me just show you a quick little video of one of our customers who've actually used some of our tin roof material. Cool. Just to reiterate with that video there, we will work very closely with some of our partners to look at what is the wind regions in the area, what is the height of the project, and all of this tells us how many, in terms of clip lock spacing or how you space your products out, the clamps out, as well as also working with the module manufacturers on their clamping zones. Here are just a few more close-up examples of the various clip lock clamps. Here's a few more of non-penetrative clamps. We have a lot more in the portfolio. Encourage you all to go to clenergy.com and go to our download section where you can find the entire catalog. Coming over to with the same range of rooftop products, it does come in two colors. One is of course silver anodized, and the other one is also with a complete black finish. As you know, with today, a lot of module companies are making module panels with all black frame, all black backing sheet. So if in terms of a nice clean finish for residential homes, we recommend Clenergy Hollywood black range, just for a nice clean finish, because you can see as the racking just disappears between the panels. In terms of ground mounting structures, whether you're looking for, this all depends obviously on the soil conditions and the wind region and how durable you want that ground mount system to be, whether you want it as a single post, dual post, or with additional braces on the side. So we have our series called Solar Terrace, which is our brand for ground mount, and we've got versions 2, 3, and 5. All of this you can find on our website as well. Thought I'll give you a little bit of another video here on, I'll just skip this. I'll go straight to the video. Yeah, there you go. Cool. In terms of tracker solutions, you have there whether you're looking for a single panel, dual panel, extra smarts with softwares which basically track weather patterns, is also an option there for you. And also something a little bit more unique. I thought I'll show you this little site here where a tracker solution here, which was I think installed the construction started in September 2020. It finished around 2020 December, and it was about 293 megawatts worth of tracker solution. And the unique thing about this one here is, apart from being a dual panel tracker system, some parts of the installation you can see was regular, but as some parts you can see the panels are at a slight tilt, which is also an additional bit of customizations that we can do for you. Cool. In terms of ground mount structures, whether you're looking for carports, on the far left is our Easy Shade, which is, it comes in single bay, double bay, it comes in black and in silver. We can customize it for the regular size panels or even the extra large commercial size panels. We have other variations, as you can see, the razor in the middle, and we also do have post mounts. Now, post mounts are actually really popular in agriculture areas where we have variations that can hold from 2 panels right up to 10 panels on one single post. And typically we see this in agriculture areas where they attach this to, to water pumps and things like that. In terms of runner, we this is our cable tray brand. It comes in various sizes of 150 millimeters to 300 millimeters, and it also has a MAC coating, which is a magnesium zinc alloy finish, which basically means with any scratches or blemishes on the system, over time it'll actually heal itself. And it also does have covers which already has the words solar DC embossed on it, so you don't have to make labels, you don't have to write on it. It already has solar DC warning labels already embossed. Well, that's in terms of all of our products. But in terms of Clenergy as a company, we do a lot of support there for our customers. So if you are looking for video support on how to install the product, learning from other influencers in the industry, learning about different new advancements in civil engineering around solar mounting, we've got a lot of videos there on our channel there for you. So if you go to clenergy.com and then click on our media and then video library. In terms of our company and our environmental social governance, we do give back a lot. We have various universities that we have partnered with, where we support their various electrical engineering and civil engineering teams. This one here on the right, what you see is Monash University and their electric F1 car team. And we support their electrical and their structural engineering teams there financially, and support all those students. In terms of if you're looking for our basic outlets, encourage you to go to clenergy.com. On the far right hand side, click on distributors and then look for store locator, and then you can click on the little drop down list which shows all the countries, and then you can find our closest our closest outlet to you. And we are obviously on the lookout for new distributors and new partners in different parts of Africa. So if that's a company like yourself, we do everything in terms of backing you and taking you through an onboarding process and bringing you into the Clenergy family. This is some of the brands that we have. We currently work with globally. Here's Australia and New Zealand. A few companies here, which some of you might recognize across Japan, partners across Asia Pacific, and finally some of our partners in Europe and in Africa. Cool. We also do have a fortnightly newsletter, so encourage you all to subscribe to that, which is on our homepage. If you scroll down, you'll see the subscribe button, and then you'll get to know more about us on a fortnightly basis. Otherwise, if you want to be in touch with us with everything that we're doing on a daily basis, jump onto our various social channels. It's literally updated almost daily. Also encourage you to go to the Facebook Learning Group, which is a private group that we have, which encourages installers to ask questions, take photographs of roofs, take photographs of different racking materials, and then we'll suggest to you on how best you can do your installation. If you want to get in touch with us, definitely use the email address there, sales@clenergy.com. That's it from myself. Thank you again for the time and opportunity to speak at this show. Back to you, Avanti. Thank you.
Thank you for that insightful presentation, Mr. Jacob. Here, I would like to make a small announcement. Attendees can post their questions in the Q&A box, and our speaker will answer those questions at the end of the panel discussion. So without any further ado, let us initiate a much-awaited panel discussion session for today. Allow me to introduce the elite panel for today, Mr. Prosper Magali, who is the chairperson of Tanzania Renewable Energy Association, Mr. Tiriani Jeff Toll, who is the CEO of Lidera Green Power, Mr. Brian Omega, who is the Managing Director of Sovereigntics East Africa Limited, Mr. Paul Kamuga, who is the General Manager of Aptec Africa, Ms. Catherine Arora, who is the Managing Director of Sobitec Kenya, Mr. Mahad Abukar, who is the Head of Transmission and Distribution in Ministry of Energy and Water Resources, Somalia. So, Mr. Prosper will be the moderator for the session. So, let us start, and over to you, Mr. Prosper.
Thank you so much, Avanti, and good morning, everyone around East Africa, and everyone joining us from elsewhere around the world. It's my pleasure and my honor to participate in today's webinar, where we are going to look on the solar market outlook in Eastern Africa. So, starting in October 2021, the world has experienced the impact of severe global energy crisis. We started with the aftershocks of the COVID-19, and then came the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This has actually impacted energy prices around the world. And actually, energy prices have skyrocketed to their highest since 2008. And the International Energy Agency estimates that the higher fossil fuel prices is accounted to about 90% of the electricity price hiking in 2022. And of that, actually, fossil gas has contributed more than half of that price rise. So we have all seen and witnessed that countries are now shifting their policies towards the application of renewables. And renewables, and in particular solar, is actually the huge role to play to resolve the energy crisis we are currently facing around the world. So today we are going to look on the role that solar has to play, in particular in the Eastern Africa region. And I'm honored actually to have distinguished speakers in the panel today. First of all, we will be having Mr. TDL Jeftor, the CEO of Lidera Green Power. We will also have Mr. Brian Omega, the Managing Director of Sovereigntics East Africa Limited. We will also have Mr. Paul Kamoga, General Manager, Uptake Africa. We are quite lucky also to have a lady in the panel, Miss Catherine Irura, Managing Director, Soita Kenya Limited. And also from the public sector, we have Mr. Mahad Abukar, the Head of Transmission and Distribution, Ministry of Energy and Water Resources, Somalia. So welcome all, and let's start by first looking on the policies and regulatory environment around the Eastern Africa countries. And with this, Ms. Catherine Irula will take us through the policies and regulatory environments around the Eastern Africa region. Ms. Catherine, please, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself, the work that you do, and then directly go to the topic of today. Thank you.
Thank you, Prosper, and it's a great privilege to be part of this panel and webinar. My name is Catherine Irura, and I'm the Managing Director of Soita Kenya Limited. We are renewable energy developers specialized in wind, solar, and green hydrogen development, and we are active in Kenya, Zambia, and Zimbabwe with a cumulative pipeline in the region of about 800 to 900 megawatt of wind and solar. So it's a great privilege to be here. And I also, at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, we have an energy subsector board and a green hydrogen subsector. So I co-lead that green hydrogen subsector board. And I also wear the hat of being the secretary of the Electricity Sector Association of Kenya. So perhaps to pick up on your introductory statement, you talked about the Paris Agreement and the global climate goals. This is the overarching framework that we would look at each country in the region. In Kenya, our greenhouse gas emissions, our targets. So under the Paris Agreement, basically, each country is supposed to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by some percentage. In Kenya, that's 22%. Ethiopia has a target of 68%. Uganda has a target, as well as Tanzania, which has a target of 35%. So from that basis, each country is meant to come up with they're called national determined contributions, which is policies, actions, plans, and initiatives to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And at a global level, at COP26, power generation was identified as a key area countries can leverage on to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions through their NDCs. And this is where policies for renewable energy generation come in. And if you look across the region, there are various instruments that are used by countries to meet these targets. In each of the countries in the region, we would have an overarching law on energy. For example, in Kenya, that's the Energy Act 2019, or a broader planning framework for electricity and other end uses, apart from power generation. By this I mean, in Kenya, for example, we are planning to enact an integrated energy plan that looks at all the sources of electricity in the region, not only from power generation, but there's a productive use, solar water heat pumps, captive sources of electricity, how solar could be used in isolated grids, and other demand creation areas that can enhance electricity access. So there's the broader frameworks and then the specific frameworks on energy. And then there are frameworks for procurement of electricity. For example, in Kenya, for solar, for projects that are above 20 megawatt, we have a renewable energy auctions policy, and it sets out the procedure as a developer, how you can be able to sell electricity to the national grid, the conditions you need to meet, the site you would need to have, and all the development steps you would undertake until you have a power purchase agreement with the utility. We have the feed-in tariff for projects which are much lower in size, less than 20 megawatt, including solar projects. We also have what we call captive power policies, where this is quite common in the CNI space for commercial and industrial users, and increasingly we are seeing also residential users coming in looking for opportunities to reduce their power costs using solar. So there's a framework that guides investments in that area, and over and above that, we also have are developing wheeling frameworks. Wheeling frameworks enable a developer to generate far from the consumer, where the consumer is located, and they can be able to use transmission lines and pay what is called a wheeling tariff, and be able to transmit the electricity to a consumer who is far from the source of production. So those are the interventions we are seeing in the region. There's also a push finalize the interconnectors between the countries in the region. Between Kenya and Ethiopia, we've had electricity trade as well as Uganda. We import a lot of hydropower electricity, and apart from that, there's been a push globally under the COP26 and 27. I'm sure you've heard about green hydrogen. It's come up in the policy agenda as one of the ways countries can decarbonize their economies. And this also leverages on the use of captive solar power, for example, to produce hydrogen. And that hydrogen is used to produce green fertilizer, green fuels such as methanol, and is seen as a pathway for decarbonizing shipping and aviation. Yeah, so those in summary are the key frameworks in place in the region. And as you can see, from a global level to a local level, there's opportunities for solar power production to come in power generation, in productive use. I talked about rooftop, captive electricity being used in other climate smart agriculture avenues such as solar water powered irrigation. So there are very many opportunities for the solar sector that are actually enshrined in the policies and regulatory frameworks in the region. Yes, so thank you, Prosper. It's my summary of the policy frame.
Thank you, Catherine, for those very good insights. Maybe a quick question to you to react to the challenges on the energy crisis globally. We are seeing countries now putting policies to ban fossil fuel. For example, in Europe, some countries have put targets to ban 100% fossil fuel in the energy space. How close are we, maybe in the East African region or in Africa in general? How close are we now putting the same policies or targets to ban fossil fuel?
Of course, we have the benefit of having relatively green grids. When you talk about the electricity sector, particularly, if you look at Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and even Ethiopia, most of our power generation is from clean sources. So it is possible for us to use electricity to decarbonize some sectors like road transportation. In Kenya, for example, we've had an e-mobility policy put in place, and they are also putting up. We have investors who've come in, like Basigo, who have electric buses, and there are plans in that sector to start using electricity-powered vehicles, making them more affordable. There's even an e-mobility electricity tariff that was implemented by EPRA during the last policy planning cycle. So they're trying to incentivize use of electricity as much as possible. And we're also seeing a trend to retirement of thermal power plants in the country. The ones that their PPAs are lapsing, they're not renewing those PPAs, or they're pushing them to come up with strategies to use other greener fuels. For example, you can use methanol as being blended with diesel, and it makes it more efficient. It reduces the volume you would need for diesel generation. Also, looking for ways to repurpose the same generators to use green ammonia, which is produced using green hydrogen, or having hybrid plants, hybrid solar and diesel, for example. We've seen that trend in the country over the past 2 years, and the thermal power plants are quite aware that this energy transition is looming. So I believe, of course, it can't be achieved all at one go. It's progressive. For us in the continent, we do heavily depend on fossil fuels, especially for road transportation. But in other sectors, it would be possible through electrification, as I mentioned, to achieve this target, to reduce our fossil fuel dependence.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thanks a lot. Let's now jump to finance and investments. So, in this space, uh, in recent years, there's quite a massive increase in investments in decentralized renewables, but uh, very little is actually flowing into sub-Saharan Africa, where we have more unelectrified people in the world. So we have financing organizations and institutions who are looking for projects to finance, and they say they don't get actually projects to finance. On the other hand, we have project developers who are actually looking for finance, but they don't find reasonable finance to invest into their projects. So there are opportunities and also challenges in the financing space, in particular for renewables. And Mr. Brian Omega, Managing Director, Sovereigntics East Africa, will take us through some of the financing aspects in the sector, and in particular in the Eastern Africa region. Mr. Brian, please, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself and the work that you do, and then take us through the topic. Thank you.
All right. Good morning from East Africa, Nairobi. Thank you very much, Prosper and Avant, for having organized this session, and Avant specifically for taking care of being the chairman of this panel. My name is Brian Omega. I am the managing director of Sovereigntics East Africa. Sovereigntics East Africa is a subsidiary of the Global Sovereigntics GmbH. We opened our doors in East Africa at the tail end of 2021, Q4 of 2021. Why? Because as you mentioned, Prosper, we've got a lot of opportunities in the region to be able to transition most of our customers into renewable energies, and at the same time develop projects in this space. With over 2 decades of experience in the renewable energy sector, our special focus as Sovereigntics is in the solar PV and hybrid systems. We've based our global industry know-how, and with that, we've managed to get a very sizable portfolio with the high-yield solar parks. We've achieved so far an investment pipeline value of about 1.5 billion USD in equity and debt, financed over $500 million USD since 2003 in over 12 different countries. Overall, Sovereigntics has successfully developed well over 120 projects in 18 different countries. And if I zoom in East Africa specifically, we currently have a pipeline of about 100 megawatt in both utility and CNI. This is in addition to a 1.5 gigawatt pipeline in the rest of Africa, coming from the southern part of Africa and the west part of Africa. And over the next few months, of course, this is expected to significantly increase. So our focus as Sovereigntics East Africa is to develop and realize medium to large scale industrial and utility scale projects. From development, financing, engineering, procurement, construction, commercial and technical management of this type of projects. So specifically, Prosper, to your very interesting question, when you talk about finance and investment, it's really a broad topic of discussion, yeah, extremely broad. And we posed a question as to why we have a lot of investors in the market who are interested in investing in renewable energy projects. And if I zero in on solar, and at the same time, we seem to have a lot of opportunities to be invested in, but we are not able to marry the two quite efficiently and effectively. And one of the reasons, of course, is because we've positioned our environment in East Africa, especially, to be a high risk, low return environment. And we've got a number of reasons as why, that is the perception is that way. Okay. So, for example, when you talk about, captive customers, there is either, ill-advised or non-existent regulatory frameworks to be able to support financial institutions to be able to invest in this field. Okay. So, of course, because of that, the cost of finance becomes quite high, because you have to price the risk. And we consequently, downstream, what you see, of course, is that it becomes very unattractive, either to the financial institution or to the customer. So that's one of the challenges that we have. And Catherine, being an expert in policy and regulation, she can be able to expound more on what we need to do as a region to open up the regulatory frameworks to be able to support financial institutions, for them to be able to feel safe and secure the investment, when they really intend to invest in captive power plants. So for the utility scale projects, we have a different discussion. Yeah. Now, I think that's one of the points that we've seen under finance, and the challenges that we are able to see. The other second challenge, of course, is project developing. I've had the pleasure of meeting quite a number of project developers, both small project developers, medium project developers, and large project developers, who seem to be able to identify projects in the region. But when we get to the financing discussion, that's where things go haywire. And based on what I've been able to pick up, with the experience that we've gathered in the region, of course, is that there are a couple of fundamental questions that if somebody wants to bring in finance into a project, for example, to you as a project developer, there are a couple of fundamental questions that have to be answered, definitively, before they're able to discuss, potential of putting money inside the project. Yeah. So, and the root cause for this, of course, is that the know-how of project developers. So I'll give you a typical example. So you intend to develop a utility scale project. Let's, for argument's sake, let's take it to about 20 megawatts. So you need X amount of money to do the development, and X amount of money, of course, to realize the project. Yeah. So depending on the level of this project developer, you come when you want to bridge the project developer now and the financial institution to discuss broadly and openly about the project, and for the financier to be able to reassess the viability of the project. There are a couple of gaps we realize in the development stage. Things to do with land, for example. Every jurisdiction has a broader perspective on how they deal with land. So for Kenya, for example, this land topic is quite emotive and quite hot. And in other jurisdictions, as I said, it's dealt with quite differently. So my point here is, if we're not able to satisfactorily, allay that the land is either secured and it is under your title deed ownership as the project developer, it already heightens the risk of the project. Okay. So the interconnection point, for example, we've seen in other regions where the land is identified that is 100 kilometers from the interconnection point. So it means for the investor, they have to consider constructing a transmission line to cover that distance, with the losses on the line, etc. So the cost of the project becomes astronomically much more, had the interconnection point been less than 5 kilometers away. So because of some of these factors, you realize that financial institutions end up being interested at the initial stage of the discussion, and then shying away because of some of these gaps in the project development. Yeah. And of course, depending on where the finance is coming from, if it's local finance, most of the times you have institutions giving you finance in local currency. For some of these projects, most of the outflows when it comes to buying the product is in foreign currency. So how to manage that forex currency risk, is also a challenge. And at the same time, also, if I'm an investor and I'm putting it X amount of $1 million inside the project, and I'm supposed to be paid every month, I'm billing them in either the local currency, being paid in foreign currency. Sorry, I'm billing in the local currency, being paid in the local currency. How do I take out my money, and keeping in mind that my investment came in foreign currency. So because of that, the risk in the market is either not fully de-risked. It's very difficult to de-risk it, but it becomes a bit unattractive for quite a number of investors. So these are the broader discussions that we need to have in a round of in how we can be able to unlock topics around finance and investment. The opportunities are there, plenty of opportunities are there. The challenges are there. We've seen very innovative financial institutions being able to unlock some of these challenges, and putting in place very interesting de-risking mechanisms to be able to unlock the investment opportunities that layer plenty. Prosper. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brian, for those insightful comments. And I think we still have work to do actually around policies and regulations actually to facilitate more financing and investment into the sector, as we have said. But there's also a very interesting discussion around local currency financing. I think I'll come back to you on this topic later. Let's now jump to technology and innovation around the sector. We've seen of recent innovations around storage, for example, uh, seeing lithium actually taking a huge space in the storage technology. Uh, but a lot of improvement actually in the use of ICT in the sector, as well as hybrid inverters, is actually taken a space of power conversion in the sector. So, Mr. Paul Kamoga, General Manager, Uptake Africa, will take us through some latest technology and innovation trends in the sector, and in particular looking in the Eastern Africa market. Mr. Paul, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Prosper, for the warm introduction. Once again, my name is Paul Kamoga. I'm the General Manager for Optic Africa Limited. I also represent the Uganda Solar Energy Association. I am the Deputy General Secretary to the board. I'll just give you a brief background about Optic Africa Limited and what we do, and then that will lead us into the discussion about innovation and trends. So at Optic, we are a solar energy and water pumping company. We've been in existence since 2011, and we started in Uganda in 2016 officially. So we've been around for quite some time. We operate in 7 African countries and 19 globally. We are an EPC partner that you would love to work with. In 2018, speaking of technology, we started an initiative to do with a small holder irrigation system that had to do a lot with providing access to water to small scale farmers. And we thought that this could make solar water pumps very affordable, because back then, or still up to now, solar water pumps are really expensive. And as time went on, we realized that things can be done just by playing around with business models. So innovation goes hand in hand with playing around the business models, finding what will fit whatever innovation that you're bringing on, what kind of IoT you are using. In the renewable energy space, pay as you go has been a very important business model that people have tried to take on, because it makes it less expensive as compared to an upfront cost. Solar, it's solar energy is a very expensive renewable energy solution, but yet very helpful to anyone, you, me, or anyone else. So pay as you go is a solution, or is one kind of innovation that people, came up with to help and subsidize the cost of a system. Um, in the other trends, we have solar mini grids, and these are being deployed in remote areas and off-grid areas in East Africa, where the extension of the main power grid is economically unfeasible. So these mini grids provide electricity to communities, businesses, and institutions, fostering economic development and improving access to energy services. Solar water pumps, I talked about that when I was starting. Solar water pumping systems have increased adoption in agriculture and rural areas of East Africa. These systems use solar energy to pump water from a source to a destination. Energy storage systems. Prosper, you talked about the lithium-ion batteries. The integration of solar technologies in East African markets. Um, The energy storage systems help address the intermittent nature of solar power, allowing excess energy to be stored and be used during periods of low or no solar generations. So under energy storage solutions, there are very many solutions that have come up. I've seen containerized solutions that use these energy solutions to power communities of close to 5,000 people. Um, in other trends, we are seeing that solar-powered mobile phone charging is also a key thing, and these are being deployed across East Africa to address the limited access to electricity, in the rural areas. These solutions enable individuals to charge their mobile phones, facilitating communication and access to information. I think it was Catherine when she was starting, she mentioned that productive use is the way to go and is where everyone is focusing right now. And there's a growing focus on solar powered innovations that support productive use, such as solar powered machinery for processing crops, solar powered solutions for small scale industries, among others. Uh, what I would like to talk about last, financing mechanisms. Most of the times when you talk about innovations, we forget that financing mechanisms is also part of the innovation that people come up with, to make these things affordable. So various financing mechanisms, including crowdfunding platforms, impact investment funds, and government-led initiatives are emerging to support scaling up of solar projects in East Africa. These mechanisms aim to overcome the financial barriers associated with the high upfront costs of solar installations. It is important to note that the East African market is dynamic, and new technologies and trends may have emerged or they keep emerging. So these are not the only innovations and trends that are there right now or still continue to grow. Those are just some of the few that are currently existing. Thank you, Prosper.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much for the insights. Maybe let's quickly talk about local manufacturing. Uh, all these technologies we are talking about, we are actually not locally manufacturing them. We largely depend on importing all the technologies. It is really sad actually to also learn that even we had a solar manufacturing plant in Kenya, which has actually ceased production. And I'm told the biggest challenge was actually they could not actually compete with other products coming from elsewhere, in particular from China. Uh, so, how long are we actually going to continue importing these technologies? Do you think local manufacturing of these products and technologies has a space actually to play in the renewable energy sector?
Thank you, Prosper. There's definitely space to play in the renewable energy sector, but local manufacturing is best. I wouldn't like to put it as it entirely based on the policies and regulations, but I think that there are brains out there in the African market that can put together things, and then they start bringing up something. I guess, for example, our pay and pump system is just it's just a mixture of different components that we sat down and thought about, and we are using part of the system we are using is locally made from Uganda. So I really think that it goes back to the policies and regulations that put these things into play, and then an enabling environment.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for your very nice insights. Uh, Now let's a bit speak on some of the case studies of successful projects which have been implemented in Eastern Africa. And Mr. TJ Toll, CEO Lidera Green Power, will take us through some of these case studies. Mr. Jeff, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Prosper. Thank you also to the organizers for the opportunity to speak about our work in Madagascar. My name is Tidiane Jeff Toll. I go by Jeff. I'm the CEO of Lidera Green Power. Lidera is a subsidiary of a Malagasy group called Philatex. Philatex is one of the largest private sector groups in Madagascar. We are active in energy, real estate, and venture capital. On the energy side, Philatex is the largest IPP by market share in Madagascar. All our projects, whether thermal or renewable, are based on PPAs with the national utility, so we are all grid connected. We have about 40% market share in terms of power generation for Madagascar. In 2017, the national utility started encouraging the IPPs to move to renewable sources because Madagascar is mainly thermal so far with a little bit of hydro. The fossil fuels are imported, so very expensive. The country is quite large. Despite being an island, it's quite large. It's bigger than France, for example. So the fossil fuels come to the port and then have to be transported to the various cities. So quite expensive. In that context, Philatex decided to create Lidera as a subsidiary to develop solar PV projects, grid connected. Lidera was started in 2020. I'm going to see if I can project my screen. Okay, I'm assuming you can see my screen. So we have three solar plants in service in Madagascar. The first one, 2 megawatts, has been in service in September 2020. The second one in Majunga on the western coast has been in service since May 2021, 1.25 megawatts. And the third one was put in service in December of last year, 2.4 megawatts. They were all three were built by a local EPC. For those who are interested in the material we are using, the solar panels are Jinko Solar and Canadian Solar. The inverters are ABB. So now we are working on the expansion of the capacity of these solar plants, which we are currently in the technical studies to see, the local networks, how much intermittent power can be injected, etc. Madagascar doesn't have a national grid. It is more one grid for the capital, and then some smaller grids for the regional cities. Okay. So this is a quick overview of the projects that we have developed in Madagascar. And as a group, we have a bigger pipeline than these three projects, but the rest is, I would say, in feasibility study stage. Back to you, Prosper.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the case studies of the projects that we've implemented in Madagascar. Maybe a quick question to you. So Eastern Africa is now a market of about 300 million people. And I'm told the Ethiopia is soon joining the East Africa community. So we have potentially a market of more than 400 million people in East Africa. Your work is currently focusing Madagascar, but as I said, you see this huge market in Eastern Africa. Maybe how have you positioned yourself now to look into other markets as well in Eastern Africa?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, our expertise and our contacts and market understanding is in Madagascar. When it comes to other African countries, we look at projects, let's say, opportunistically, depending on the strength of the local partner. We would not take the lead, let's say, in other markets, but we would partner with a local developer. Right now, we are looking at some solar projects in Cote d'Ivoire and also in Chad. But if there were opportunities to partner with a strong local developer, whether in Kenya or Uganda, Ethiopia, we would definitely look at that, including Tanzania as well.
Thank you. So it's actually a call to partners actually to find you and speak on partnership opportunities.
Absolutely. We are quite open for that.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. I'll come back to you later. Let's now go to the public sector, and we are quite lucky to have Mr. Mahad Abukar from Somalia. So, Mr. Mahad, I would like you, first of all, to respond on policies and regulatory environment in Eastern Africa, and in particular, maybe in Somalia. I believe the audience would love to learn about how the environment is in Somalia for them maybe to come and implement and invest in the renewable energy space in Somalia. And then you can take us through the future outlook of the solar market in Eastern Africa. The floor is yours, Mr. Mahad. Mr. Mahat, can you hear us?
I think Mr. Paul is facing an audio issue. We can move on to another speaker till then.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we'll come back to Mr. Mahat later. Let me go back to Brian and let's discuss a bit on local currency financing. As we have said, this has been quite a challenge in the financing space, not only in the renewables, but financing in general. We believe the cost of finance could be largely reduced if finance could be actually offered in local currency. How close are we actually to have local currency financing in the region?
Thank you, Prosper. Let me try and rephrase and probably try and make sure that I'm understanding your question correctly. So you want to understand how far we are in terms of local financing. By local financing, what do you mean? Do you mean finance that has been consolidated from the local market, or finance that is consolidated somewhere else but administered from a local bank, for example?
Yes, local banks actually offering finance.
Okay. No, I think
and using
the
using
opportunities.
local currencies.
Okay. Okay, good. I think the opportunities are there. I have seen in the market a movement towards this direction. Keep in mind that any financing that is being offered is always priced considering a lot of risk. So it's really risk-based pricing. Take an example of you going to the bank for a personal loan. You might have a better credit score than I am, so you deemed to be a less risky customer. So of course, for you to access the finance might be faster and at a lesser cost, as opposed to me who might be priced much higher because I'm a high risk borrower. Okay. What I'm seeing today is that there is some traction and movement towards local institutions affording financing to local organizations. Okay. And this financing, depending on the jurisdiction, again, we've got financing that you can get still in foreign currency, USD, euro, or you can as well get financing in the local currency. So yes, are we there? Are we there? No, but quite a number of financial institutions are interested to transition to have this as part of their book. So they are in advanced discussions, and I know quite a number of organizations that have been able to finance their projects from local finance institutions. Some, of course, have managed to secure this financing in foreign currency, or a split between the two, foreign currency and local currency. And I know some developers have managed to secure, financing in form of debt, mainly, in local currency to finance their local projects. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. And Catherine, maybe on the topic of financing, you have heard of Brian's insights on the opportunities and challenges on the space. What is actually your take on the same? Catherine, please unmute and speak.
Apologies for that. But just to support what Brian is saying, our policymakers, Senate, National Assembly have been trying to work with the private sector and inquiring how they can create a conducive, borrowing environment for IPPs in the sector in order to access more local finance. As Brian rightly pointed out, corporate finance in Kenya is quite expensive. developers, IPPs would prefer to look outside of the country for more cheaper equity and debt capital. And of course, because this is a concern about the cost of power, how we can lower the generation costs. There have been discussions and proposals to even look at possibilities of accessing local pension funds, for example, them investing in these projects. I think this is also happening in South Africa. Yeah, so that has been seen as one of the ways to reduce the cost of power. And also, Brian also touched about how countries can create a stable investment environment for investors in the sector. One of the things that I picked up is having a stable policy and regulatory environment, taxation regimes, because as you pointed out, we import a lot of solar equipment, and every financial year there's usually a change in how these are classified by the tax authorities for the basis of customs. So until we're able to have our domestic production, how are we going to create a better enabling environment? And for those bigger utility projects, there are issues such as letters of support, having better certainty in the least cost power development planning on when projects could likely be built, having more demand creation opportunities in the country that could stimulate consumption of the electricity. Yeah, so that's what I think I would add to what he has contributed on financing and what it takes for investors as well to consider this market. Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. There's also a question I actually asked Jeff on the potential market in the East African region. I don't see a lot of businesses actually across countries. We actually are not doing enough business across countries, and maybe our policymakers have a role actually to play to ease in doing business across countries. So Catherine and maybe Brian, how potentially do you see this opportunity of having a big market in the Eastern Africa region could actually attract investors in the technology as well as in the financing space to actually uptake this huge market in the East African region? So, Catherine, maybe to start with you, do you see maybe enough policies facilitating business, doing business across countries in the region?
Okay, perhaps I could start and then Brian could chip in. I believe there are opportunities in the sector to reduce the licensing bottlenecks for projects. Time you're putting up a captive power plant or a utility scale plant, Brian mentioned the development steps you have to go through: securing land, doing the environmental and social impact assessment, your technical studies, applying for an energy generation license, and the turnaround times around this, the licensing for a CNI project or a utility scale project. And also touching on the regulatory regimes, there are changes. Sometimes you have to pay a percentage of the project fee to NEMA, who are our environmental authority. And then sometimes the law changes, that's scrapped off. So having a stability in the policy and regulatory framework and reduction of these licensing bottlenecks could assist greatly in unlocking more investment. I think Solar Quota did a report on the current installed capacity in East Africa for solar projects. Uh, Tanzania had a 20% installed capacity. I think Uganda has 7%, and Kenya has around 11% CNI, which is growing. So there is room. I think in Kenya there's a projection that this our installed CNI capacity could grow from 383 megawatt to almost 515 megawatt. And here, I would say for Kenya particularly, it has to do a lot with the electricity tariff for industrial consumers. We are seeing a shift and more investment in solar because of the tariffs that are there. The government is really trying hard to come up with innovative instruments such as time of use tariff for industrial industrial facilities and manufacturers, but still it's not enough to enable companies to have lower production and end user costs. And the cost of living, obviously, as you've seen in Kenya, has been quite emotive issue. So large CNI, we see potential for growth, particularly, and the sectors that are having more consumptive use of solar and CNI are agriculture, followed by metal and allied, like companies that are producing steel. There's also the flower farms, and we'll see an increasing trend as well in this sector. Maybe I could hand over to Brian to also add. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, of course, and if I were the heart of an investor, for example, I mean, the the mandate of an investor is to be able to develop an opportunity, invest, let's say, come in with the finance, and more importantly, realize a project within a specific business time, aligned to their specific business model, and take the money out to the shareholders, who can be you and me as well. Okay. Now, as I said, sometimes it's case by case. So each country have different behaviors. Now, one of the things that we need to start imagining to do is, could we sort of, as an East African bloc, have, let's say, very close regulatory framework around, the renewable energy, okay, and only tweak the minor changes based on each country's grid. All right. For example, if in Rwanda, for example, you have a set limit, as to how much power you can install in a PV, how much PV farm you can construct, and this will put off quite a number of investors. Okay, and so it means in this market where there's a lot of potential, you can only have a very finite number of investors who are willing to work with the power generation of less than or 50 kilowatt peak, for example. Yeah. So in Tanzania, for example, the tariff for captive customers is very good for the consumer, okay, but not so much for the investor, because if you're paying your utility, I don't know, 7 USD cents per kilowatt hour, this is not even the cost of generation. If you need to install a 15-year, if you need to sign a 15-year PPA on a captive plant, so it means then it's very difficult for an investor to look at this market if their sole mandate is to put in the finance and be able to make money out of it, because it's also an investment. Yeah. So yeah, we see all those types of challenges. But globally, I think the discussions are are taking place. I know for sure, like in Rwanda, Tanzania, the discussions are taking place. In Kenya, we're always discussing some of these topics. So the market is there. There's a lot of sun to be tapped. There are a lot of investors who are willing to invest in the market, and I think the potential is immense. So the job today is just how do we accelerate this to be able to harness the power from the sun.
Thank you, Brian. Avant, is Mr. Mahad back?
Mr. Mahad is facing some issue, so we'll now be screening some questions.
All right, so it's now the time for questions from the audience. So, Avant, how do we take questions? Do they write
Yes,
them on
I'm
the chat?
showing it on stage.
Okay. So, Catherine, that is for you. Could you highlight which East African countries are pivotal in solar installations, their relative sizes, and future prospects? Catherine, please.
Yeah, so maybe to respond to that, at least here in Kenya, we are one of the leading countries with the high installed capacity of solar per capita. As I mentioned, we have, for large CNI, we have an installed capacity of around 338 megawatt, and this is projected to grow to around 515 megawatt. We, as part of the Electricity Sector Association of Kenya, we commissioned a CNI study just last year, where we, together with EPRA, tried to look at what installed capacity is there and what is estimated to be installed in the next 5 years. So solar PV is actually one of the fastest growing technology in the sector, and it's estimated this will be 30% in the next 5 years. That's Kenya. But in terms of the region, I believe Tanzania is also one of the leading countries as well, with an installed capacity of 21% for solar. The rest of the region, perhaps we could look at the reports. Uganda, I believe, should be at around 7%, but there is possibility for more investment, I would say, in solar. And also for consumers, as I mentioned, reducing the power costs is one of the key drivers for more residential and commercial consumers taking up captive solar power. There's also a push to have, like in Kenya, for example, we have the net metering regulations, which will be gazetted later towards the end of this year. And this will enable consumers to be able to sell their excess power and feed it into the national grid. Yeah, as long as the capacities are not above 1 megawatt. So we are seeing growth. I think for the solar sector, there's growth, and the regulator is aware that the industry is evolving. In fact, in the captive power policy, they, of course, subject to better regulation, there would be provision for ancillary services because of this issue of how solar integrates in the national grid, it being an intermittent renewable. So, yeah, the country is quite keen to expand both solar and wind production. The concern of the regulators, as I mentioned in the chart, has just been how to integrate it into the national grid. and how technological solutions such as those we've talked about here could come in handy, like the battery energy storage and the opportunities to hybridize both solar and wind in projects where the resource is good. Yeah, so that would be my response in summary to that question. Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. A question to Brian. I think you can read it. Why would it be a risky if the developer are the owner of the land? Can you please elaborate as to why investors would see this as a risk? Because I think we can all agree it is easy. Yeah, Brian, please, can you respond to that question?
Of course. So the question today is why would it be a risk if the developer are the owner of the land? Can you please elaborate as to why investors will see this as a risk? Because I think, okay, I mean, when it comes to finance and investment, it's quite a broad topic. So it means that in this case, you have a developer who's also the owner of the land. When it comes to development of projects, each developer has a unique way they'd want the project to proceed. Okay, so I'll give you an example. You have a developer who would want to have an investor to bring in, let's say, equity into the project or debt into the project for them to be able to build the project. So you could have, I don't know, 20 acres or 100 acres of land, depending on the size of the project. You have all the paperwork clear, and what you're looking for is X amount of $1 million to be able to realize the project. Okay, so in this case, you have to go into the market to look for an investor, depending on how you want to manage it. You might want somebody to bring in equity, for example. And one of the things that this discussion would lead to, of course, is that how what sort of what sort of certainties are there when it comes to that land, in terms of, is the paperwork clear? Yes, no. Okay, so it means that the risk is less. Are you putting in the land as part of your commitment as a co-investor in the project? So this is once the developer owns the land, it just means that you reduce the risk of the project, okay, to an investor. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you've eliminated 100% the risk. So there's a lot of due diligence that has to go on to be able to put the money into the project. I've seen some investors who want to, let's say, co-own the land, if they're putting the money in the project. So in summary, you'll have a big step ahead in terms of realizing the financial closure of the project, because you own the land as a project developer. So this is extremely good. Now you're looking for somebody to put in the money, but this person has to come and manage the due diligence, and the land could be part of the discussion. Does it mean then you have to co-share the title deed of the land? Does it mean in your agreement? So it just means that you probably there's less risk with this type of project, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the risk is 100% taken out. So it just so it's the discussion will have to be case by case. I hope I've tried to give my point of view.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Mahad, are you back and can you hear us? We actually can't hear you. I think you are still facing some audio issues. Vance, do we have further questions from the audience?
Uh, yes, so we are end up with the question and answer. So, so we are end up with the session for today. So thank you, audience and panelists, and a special thanks to Mr. Prosper for superbly managing the session. A big shout out to our attendees for extending your time and support for the event. Thanks to our partner Clenergy for their immense support to organize this event. We promise you to come back soon with another exciting session, and the floor is now open for all of you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.